I tended the Exile Registry for 40 years. People imagine that work is dramatic, sealing fates, stamping the word banished across a life. It isn't. It's filing. It's footnotes. It's a drawer that never closes all the way because the runner that keeps it level wore down sometime around year 12 and nobody ever ordered a new one. The Velmar Concorde doesn't exile species often. It's expensive, optically ugly, and tends to outlive the careers of whoever signed the order. But it does happen, and when it does, the paperwork lands on my desk and it sits there, technically alive, for as long as the Concorde exists. An exile is never closed. It's only ever marked resolved by extinction or resolved by reinstatement, and in 40 years I had filed exactly one of the second kind and 11 of the first. The hollow compact colony was case 9. I knew the file the way you know a scar. 81 Terran settlers, a mining concession on a moon nobody else wanted, quarantined after a Concord trade delegation accused them of withholding extraction yields during a famine year on 3 neighboring worlds. The settlers said the embargo against them came first, that they'd been cut off from resupply before they ever held anything back, that the famine was the Concorde's mismanagement dressed up as someone else's crime. Nobody on the bench wanted to hear it. The vote took 11 minutes. The moon went dark 8 years later, atmosphere processors failed, no rescue authorized, file marked resolved by extinction, archived, forgotten by everyone except the man whose job is to never forget anything. I used to feel something when I pulled that file. Not anymore. 40 years sans the feeling off most things. I had become, by my own estimation, an extremely well-organized ghost. Then on a Tuesday in spring, a courier drone the size of a fist landed on my desk and disgorged a notarized claim filing, fully formatted, properly witnessed, citing case 9 by its correct docket number, requesting reinstatement of trade and travel rights for the hollow compact colony under Continuity Provision 14, the clause that says an exile lapses automatically if the exiled party demonstrates 40 consecutive years of independent, non-hostile civil continuity without Concord knowledge or support. 40 years. To the month. I want to be honest about what I did next, because the honest version is duller and truer than the version people will tell at dinners. I did not gasp. I did not run to anyone's office. I logged the intake timestamp, checked the notarization seal against the registry's authentication index. It was valid, current issue Concord paper, meaning somewhere a notary on some unrelated world had processed this without realizing what it was. And I began processing the claim exactly as the regulations instruct, because nowhere in 40 years of statute has anyone written an exception for the petitioner isn't supposed to still exist. The committee found out 3 weeks later, when the claim cleared my desk and landed, properly routed, properly stamped, on theirs. I'm told there was a great deal of noise. I wasn't in the room. I was in my office, drawer rattling on its bad runner, locating case 9's full archive for the inevitable hearing, the way I'd located every other file in this office for 4 decades, because that's the job, and the job doesn't care whose comfort it disturbs. The hearing happened on a Thursday. I was called as the registry's representative, which mostly meant I sat at a side table and answered questions about chain of custody. But near the end, a junior delegate, young enough that case 9 predated her by 20 years, indignant in the specific way only the young can afford to be, asked me directly, didn't I think it was suspicious, a dead colony filing paperwork? Didn't I think someone should have flagged it before it reached this chamber? I told her the truth. I said the registry isn't built to flag the impossible. It's built to process the documented. The colony's atmosphere processors failed, yes, that was recorded, verified, never disputed. What was never recorded, because no one ever went back to look, was whether all 81 settlers were still on that moon when it happened, or whether a portion of them had already moved underground into the original mining shafts the Concorde's own geological survey had marked, for decades earlier, as structurally viable long-term shelter. Nobody checked. Nobody was required to check. The file said extinction, so the file was extinction, and everyone in this room built 40 years of policy on top of a closed drawer. The chamber was quiet for a moment in the particular way a room goes quiet when it realizes the silence is its own doing. What came out over the following months, through testimony, through the compact colony's own meticulous and frankly better-kept records than ours, was that they'd known exactly what the embargo had cost them and exactly what the Concord assumed about their fate, and they had decided, as a body, that the safest path back into existence was not appeal, not protest, not the loud re-entry everyone would have expected from people wronged this badly. It was patience. 40 years of patience, mining quietly, growing food in shafts nobody surveyed twice, raising children who'd never seen a Concord vessel and teaching them the provision number by heart the way other children learn a hymn, because someone among the original 81 had read Continuity Provision 14 the week before the processors failed and understood, with a clarity I still find unsettling, that the Concord's own law contained the only door back that the Concord couldn't simply vote to close. Again, I am not a sentimental man. 40 years in this drawer cures you of that. But I will say this much, when the reinstatement vote finally passed, 11 minutes shorter than the Exile vote that started it, which nobody in the room found funny except me, I pulled Case 9's folder one final time, and instead of marking it resolved by extinction, I wrote, in my own hand, in the box reserved for outcomes the Registry had never once required. Resolved by continuity. The petitioner was never gone. We were simply never asked to look. Then I put the file back in the drawer, and the drawer, for the first time in 40 years, slid shut all the way.